Oh, oh, yes. This is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and welcome again to Unofficial Creature Features reviews, which means that we review something after we've watched Creature Features. And the latest episode tonight is, before we go back to Transtech filming all week before starting tomorrow, I wanted to do a Creature Features. So tonight was the Creature Features episode Scared to Death, 1947 Bela Lagosi movie. I'm going to tell you about the movie, and then I'm not going to embellish too much because I've already done the other ones. This one is rotosculpt color. It's not quite Technicolor. It's sort of like pre-Technicolor, even though they had Technicolor back then with Wizard of Oz. It was actually a couple of years earlier. It started a little person that was in Babes in Toyland, which I have not done a review of on there, but I'm going to have to watch the Creature Feature one and then do that. And I'll have to actually watch the. I'll also have to watch Real Pete's Monster. Yeah, so, but the blog going on about other things was they were kind of funny. There were some moments on the blog that was funny, but nothing that could really be translated because it wasn't that great. Mostly the story was boring. My mother's 85th birthday. That's the evening, so anyway, it's all horror fans and sci-fi fans and yes. Originally, Creature Features aired. Well, it was on since the 70s, but through the 80s and early 90s. And, with John Stanley is the one that we remember. John Stanley was after Bob Wilkinson. But, anyway, so we've been over that, too. So, the movie was about this, mostly done with one set, in a house, a big house set, in the 40s. With a very blanched out color, kind of like here right now. But yeah, it's the light is blue. It's weird. And they had stereotypes of characters. Fortunately, no minstrels, but they did have a little person. And they kept selling jokes about the little people in there, in the comments. There was a reporter, there was a ditzy blonde lady, a crackpot boiler reporter, a sort of New York / Hollywood / Irish cop, of course. There was a crazy German professor, and of course there was Bela Lagosi, who was playing an Austrian of a different stripe, who was a hypnotist doctor guy. There was a mysterious couple that was a magician and his wife. That's interesting and different. Unfortunately, in the movie, it was not done correctly. So, there were other movies that were done better than this one. But it was funny to see the reactions of the characters doing their thing, and even though oddly enough, they cut out all the there would have been smoking in this movie. There just wasn't any. There would have been. So they must have cut stuff out, because it must have been one that was cut out. There wasn't any drinking. There was sexism, of course. There was gaslighting, of course. There was people being mistreated, of course. But it was still PG, and the death scenes were not scary. There was a fake out death scares a couple times. There was a cat scare. There was a cool effect with a mannequin head that for the 40s looked pretty darn good. It was the 40s, but yeah, it was a pretty good mannequin head. And they did apparently that movie, that 80s movie with the head in the box. They had the what's in the box thing. They must have seen this movie, because they're like, it's directly in there. This head appears at the bottom. And that's where that movie got that. So that movie goes back to the 40s. That idea of the head in the box. to this movie, possibly. Possibly. Well, actually, there's probably the brain that wouldn't dies earlier, so maybe the brain wouldn't. So maybe not. But yeah, the head in the box, like, freaky. Ooh. Yes, we had characters behaving badly and scared to death. Yes, the titular character is scared to death in the end credits of it, and they always put the credits beforehand in older movies. The credits are first. There's no end credits in older movies for the 60s. So a lot of credits were earlier. You mentioned a lot of better bad movies. Black Christmas. Although the original Black Christmas is cool. The sequel's not so much. I didn't mind the 90s version of it. Track and Burn. The early 2000s version. But the recent one? No. I guess that one is really terrible. Yeah. Yeah, they mentioned some werewolf and zombie movies. They mentioned Overlord, which was a zombie Nazis movie. It was funny because they were trying to think of what the movie was called, and I knew. So it was all Overlord. They were all like, it was a Cloverfield movie with Nazi zombies. Oh, Overlord. Oh. That's the name of it. And it wasn't Cloverfield. It was just the guy that directed, produced it. Cloverfield. But yeah, it's not really a creature features movie. It's not that bad. Yeah, it's not bad enough to be in creature. It's got to be a bad movie. They had the guest star from the Weird Al band, Ruban. He was in it. And he was thoroughly disgusted that he had to watch this awful movie. And Tangelo smiled knowingly after this comment about corpses and stuff. Comment was that is she smiling knowingly at them and the joke, or is she smiling knowingly at the ghost they don't see? There was a ghost gag in the movie where somebody rises up in a sheet. That was kind of cool. That was cool. Reanimator style. Yeah, obviously, the Reanimator guy was a fan, not only of that, but of the head. Actually, there's a reason for that. Up there. The head from the prop from this movie was in Reanimator. Cool. So, yeah. True that. Yep, it was. They had the prop, and they're like, that's kind of cool. Yeah, so, yeah, it was connected. The guy was a fan. He was like, can I get that head prop? Or at least it was a very good reproduction of it. Head prop. There was also a mesmerized lady that passes out. They have to, like, Lagosi has to revive her with his mesmeric powers. And determines she's going to. They wore hats and suits back then. They had, like, crazy stuff going on. And yeah, so this is not going to be a long review at all. The lady gets scared to death again. Apparently they trick her into breaking the spell that she was under. And then she tells the firing squad and the husband guy that was trying to get his revenge. And the husband guy shows up. They think that he was killed in the firing squad, but he wasn't. Even though the blood was on the scarf, it was probably planted there. And then he apparently causes her literally to die of fright at the end. Well, they did say that some of those guys with those hats were lead lines. Some of those hats, some of those fedoras. Yeah, so people were commenting on it, colorization and stuff like that. But this movie wasn't colorized. It was just really bad rotoscope. It was the 40s. The print wasn't too great. But when you see Wizard of Oz, 1939, or you see Gone with the Wind, 37, these movies were restored. The versions you're seeing now are restored, so they've been cleaned up. So yeah, the original theatrical Gone with the Wind, as aired in the theatrical version of Wizard of Oz, as well, which was aired theatrically again like 20 years later and 30 years later. Then 50 years later, many of those movies were released over and over again in larger print and put on the screen. This movie didn't get that treatment, so it wasn't restored. So it's whatever print they had available from blown up from 16 millimeter, looks like. So yeah, it's not going to look good. Yeah, it isn't going to be a full restoration like something like, The Wizard of Oz. It's just not. It's not going to get that. And that's why The Wizard of Oz is all glorious color and everything, because they actually added stuff to it to make it look prettier. So I remember that the 80s VHS version of The Wizard of Oz and the release at Century 21 when I was a kid, although it looked really good, the reprints looked even better because they had restored a lot of the visuals and such, but it was kind of blanched out in the theater in the 80s. So, anyway, but they fixed it. The reprints, they added stuff to it. It's kind of like Lucasing it a little bit. I don't know about that. Oh, this story is actually closer to what it would have looked like. And somebody commented that Topper was in it. Yes, one of the dudes from Topper Returns was in this movie. And not too much after Topper Returns, actually. So, anyway, that's my review of this Creature Feature movie tonight. There's not much else extra, so that's it. Now I guess I'll post the review real quick. And, don't forget.